Hi, everybody. This is Cassie Eichhoff, and this is my curriculum analysis. I did it on a literary devices curriculum or unit in my language arts class. So understanding literary devices, this is just to kind of get you guys used to what they are if you've forgotten. It's basically the typical structures writers use to convey messages, and those messages aren't always straightforward, and that's a really hard thing for our kids to grasp these days. They're used to being able to really trust what they read, and some of our kids really struggle with this because some of our kids really struggle with reading. So examples of that are alliteration, personification, simile, metaphor, allusion, and irony. And then those are some of the state standards that we use. Those are kind of the three big ones. This was really a shorter unit compared to what we're used to doing. It was literally about 3 weeks of class time. So my curriculum critique, the underlying assumptions that we had, that was something that we did pretty well. Our assumptions about our students, we tried not to make any, and we tried to do some pre-testing and stuff like that. So we didn't try to assume, oh, they should already know what simile and metaphor is. We did some pre-assessment there. Our organization was pretty darn good, I would have to say. We did a nice job of really sitting down and just getting this kind of hammered out day after day after day, and building in some things we thought the kids would enjoy, but also some things that would show us what they were really learning. The implementation was also pretty good. We used a lot of just kind of newer methods that we hadn't used up to this point. And we thought that the kids really enjoyed it. Their scores were pretty good. And then the curriculum evaluation, we were always good at sitting down and figuring out the good things that we did, maybe the things that went okay, but we could do better, and then the things that didn't go so well. The bad part about this curriculum is, well, the curriculum itself, because I taught this when I was a brand new teacher fresh out of my training program, and there was no curriculum for the language arts people at that time at the school that I was working at. So that was not great, and that's exciting and terrifying for a teacher. The other thing that we didn't really use a lot of with this particular unit is technology, and I know that kids are really into that. But we actually ended up doing a pretty good job, even so. The getting there part, I would say that would be our documentation. We assessed them, I want to say maybe 5 or 6 times throughout the pre-assessment to the final assessment. So I think that was showing us some good things, but it didn't show us everything. And then our change efforts, it's really hard to evaluate while you're in the middle of something, because if you don't see something through, you can't really give it a true evaluation. So I would say that that's the hardest part, is being reflective as you go along and really being true, or being honest with yourself and figuring out how you can go about after that. And that's all from that. All of this good, bad, and getting there is from the Posner reading. The curriculum, what it looked like, again, when I took the job, there wasn't a curriculum. So they basically said, we're in the process of redoing it. So as long as you use the state standards, we're fine. And again, that was exciting and terrifying. My co-teacher and I, we comprised a curriculum based on goal setting, pre-assessment, scaffolding, text sets, skits and interpretations, formative data points, and post-assessment. Those were the things that really that we had kind of relied on to get the points across to the kids of what they needed to know, and then also getting the information back to us so we could say, oh, we might need to reteach that, or oh, maybe not. And then the pictures on the screen are some of the books that we used for the text sets. So the Dot, Oh, the Places You'll Go, and The Giver, those are pretty obvious picks for teaching literary devices. But then I want to draw your attention to the Jan Martel book. The kids love this. It's a little crazy. If you ever have a chance, read it. It's really good. The implementation. So that looked a little like this. We did the introduction with the pre-assessment. We did the goal setting. The kids did some independent research, and they ranked themselves on what they believed they knew. So they were either beginning, developing, proficient, or advanced. And then again, we had another data point on the 28th. We were getting them to formative step 1. So they needed to be able to identify the different types of literary devices. That day, we also introduced the text sets. The formative step 2 as follows. About a week later, we kept working with the text sets. We did interpretation, so they were able to build things. They were able to collaborate and show what they knew. And then they were also doing dyads. So they were teaching each other and correcting each other. On the 15th, we had our formative step 3. So we were getting them building to compare and contrast. We were finishing up with the text sets. We introduced the skits that day, and then the kids were open to interpreting and kind of having Socratic discussion about the use of literary devices and how they were alike and different. And then our final, obviously, on the 17th was a summative assessment, and that's your level 4 analysis. It's putting all of that together. So really, that is how we implemented the unit. Development perspectives and purpose. We developed this on the fly. The most important thing for us was to stay with the state standards and also to find a way to appropriately assess what the students knew. We really built this curriculum on a wing and a prayer. We hoped it would work. We thought, we have a little autonomy here. They told us we could do what we wanted. So we tried to do something different that the kids hadn't done. The perspectives, we wanted to represent a lot of perspectives in this unit, and I think we did a pretty good job. We wanted each level of learner to be able to engage in conversation using that academic language. So we used pre-assessment to gauge where they were, and then scaffolding to meet them where they're at, and then build up. And then we also used the text sets and interpretation and drawing and the skits so that everybody could participate. The text sets had a variety of perspectives, as if you recall some of the books, they were actually able to really relate to those, which was really great. And then we worked a lot on moral education, because that's something that I really like to teach inside my classroom is how to treat people well, because that's how you want to be treated, and that's an old Durkheim theory of education. So. And then the purpose, our goal was for 70% of our students to be at the proficient level. So being able to identify, describe, and compare in regard to literary devices. Those results are coming up soon. And then the hidden curriculum, the morality part of it was a really big deal for us. We wanted to bring in perspective and multiculturalism. And then we also wanted to get the kids to realize that not all work is trustworthy, or maybe they're not always being serious, or maybe this is, just because it says the tree was waving, understanding that that's not, a literal thing, that's a figurative thing. Getting them to understand that is quite complex sometimes. And then the null curriculum, those things that aren't necessarily given a lot of time in school. We did a lot of skits during this, just short little skits where the kids were using the academic language. And then interpretation, they were able to draw, and they were able to do some finger painting. They were able to do some Play-Doh creations and stuff like that. And then basically how it was set up was we wanted to model what we wanted, and then we were doing gradual release. So as the kids got used to it, they were able to take more autonomy into their work, self-direct, self-start, etc. And then we collected data along the way. So the conclusion, you can see our graph there. According to our data, we did pretty well. We hit our goal of 70% of our students achieving proficient scores. And as always, it's best to reflect. We could have documented more often. It's little things really that could really maximize what you're doing and minimize your mistakes. We could have added more discovery learning, I feel like. We could have encouraged the technology, but sometimes we try to get away from that. We could have had some more student autonomy. This was fairly early on in the year, so that pre-teaching is really important. And then maybe been more intentional about our process, but I think that would have kind of gone hand in hand if we maybe would have had a curriculum or something a little closer to follow. It was really hard to be super intentional when you don't know exactly what you're doing. We were more concerned about the hidden curriculum. Our students got into it and did really well with that. So that was really good. And here are my references. Thank you, everybody, for listening.